We'll look at one.
He said he didn't want to.
Good evening. Welcome to the Monday, May 13th, regular board meeting for Sewer Authority Midcoast. Can I have roll call, please?
Director Lohman,
Here, sort of.
Director Dye,
Here.
Chair Penrose,
Here.
Director Slater Carter,
Present.
Director Blanchard,
Here.
and Director Reddick.
She is coming, she's not here yet. Do we have public comment? No one from the public wants to say anything? Thank you.
I will say something at this point. Watch out for the rain that's coming, guys. There's a big rainstorm coming, so get ready for that. It's Thursday.
Wednesday night,
Wednesday night, Thursday.
and then again on Sunday apparently.
Yep.
It's the second one coming in. So,
Yep.
yeah, Beverly sent us an update on that.
Yes, we will have qualified for more precipitation than Seattle
Amazing.
this year, so, I know,
That's why everything is blooming, including all the weeds.
yes.
Okay, we have the consent agenda. Does anyone wish to pull anything from the consent agenda? May I have a motion then?
So moved.
A second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We move on to regular business. Authorize the general manager to execute a loan agreement with PG&E in an amount not to exceed $148,129.25.
And this goes back to the presentation that we had at our last meeting regarding the blowers. And so this is the actual agreement so that we can accept the money and the loan agreement from, or the loan amount from PG&E.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I move that we authorize the general manager to execute the loan agreement.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Next item is authorizing the general manager to issue a purchase order to Neuros for the purchase of 2 turbo blowers in an amount not to exceed $425,000.
So this is that same project, and I'm gonna turn it over to Kishan.
Yeah, this is the same project which PG&E had studied and have given us an okay to go ahead with the on-bill financing agreement. It emphasizes replacing the existing centrifugal blowers which have gone past the useful life to be replaced by turbo blowers. So by replacing it with turbo blowers, we are saving about 160,000 kilowatt hour annually, which amounts to a cost saving of about 28,961 annually. And also doing a lot of reduction in the carbon dioxide of about 38 tons.
Excellent.
So this is the state-of-the-art technology, turbo blowers, which is already commissioned and working very well for the past 6 to 8 years at South San Francisco and Millbrae. Similar wastewater treatment plants. Staff has had a look at it, done their due diligence, and have brought it back to the board. We also have the manufacturer present here who's flown in from Canada here. He's going to do a short presentation on the turbo blowers.
Okay.
May I introduce Glenn Galliani and
Hi.
Hi.
if
I'm
you
going
could,
to get
yeah.
out of the
We
way.
need to scoot.
Hi everyone, my name is Dame Galliani. I'm a sales manager for APG Neuros. I'm just going to be presenting a little bit about the company background, our capabilities, a little bit of the customer benefits of using this technology of high-speed turbo blowers, and then some of the case studies with fleet statistics, including the South San Francisco and Millbrae facilities, and then the short summary at the end. So our company is APG Neuros. We have the first headquarter in Blainville, Quebec. This is where I'm located. Basically this is where our technical team is, and we also have another facility in Plattsburgh, New York. This is where we keep our stock. We have almost $5 million worth of stock in this facility. They're all components, spare parts, ready to ship. Our policy is 24 hours shipping for whatever spare part or component for any of our high-speed turbo blowers. Based on the last study that we did in 2019, we found that we have a bit more than 1,300 high-speed turbo blowers installed in North America. We have more than 4,500 blowers installed all over the world. You can see how the growth started in 2006 with one installation in Saint-Pie, Quebec, and went to 1,300 and even more now in 2019. And we have around 150 blowers on order. We have perfect engineering capabilities. We have a full engineering team working with background in designing wastewater treatment plants. It's not only about the aeration system or the blowers, but it's about the whole plant. So we really have this experience, and we can help designing other stuff other than the aeration tank, all the connected components, piping and instrumentation that has anything to do with the high-speed turbo blower. So some of the customer benefits for this technology, it's around up to 35% more efficient than the conventional technology, like the blowers, the old blowers that you have here in this facility, the multi-stage centrifugal. This is almost 35% more efficient, and it can go above that if operated with the operation flexibility that we have inside the blower. There's a programmable logic controller, a variable frequency drive, so you can control the speed of the blower to make sure that you're producing exactly the flow that is required for the facility. Unlike the existing blower, they always run at full capacity regardless of how much air or how much flow you need. So this is added to the 35% better efficiency, which provides somewhere between 35 and 50% on the cost savings, on the energy cost savings. It's a very low maintenance product. We will see in a couple of slides, how much it costs to maintain these blowers compared to the conventional technology or the existing technology here in this facility. It's very quiet. The noise is below 80 dBA, which is the sound of a microwave, compared to the one that you have right now that is 120 dBA, which is the sound of a jet engine. It's very easy to install, and it doesn't cost much to install. It's a plug-and-play package. All you have to do is connect the power supply and the networking cable just to monitor it from the plant SCADA, and it's good to go. Talking about the installation cost, it's a plug and play. It does not exhaust any hot air to the blower room. So the existing blower room, we were just there today. It's really hot inside. All this hot air will disappear from this room. The hot air is actually discharged to the process without affecting the room temperature. Again, there's no concrete pad required, there's no special reinforcement or foundation required, so it's gonna save a lot of cost on the installation. It has monitoring, vibration monitoring, so it's well protected, and it will last for more than 25 years. Everything is built inside, so a lot of other components that are required with the existing technology will not be required with this blower. it's all built inside. Electrical components, mechanical components, even the protection instruments are all built inside the blower. And this is how it looks on the left side. It's just an enclosure with everything built in. Compared to the existing blower, it's smaller in size. So right now, if we replace the existing blowers with this technology, we're going to be saving around 1/3 of the space inside this room for other equipments to be installed in the future. And it doesn't require as much maintenance space as the ones that you guys have now. This is just an example of one of the projects we have done. It's similar to the application that you guys have approved from PG&E. This was in Ontario, in Canada. It's basically from Ontario Power Agency, and the utilities company is Ontario Clean Water Agency. So we replaced 16 positive displacement blower, which is one of the conventional technologies, for a total of 2,000 horsepower, with our 3 of our blowers for a total of 1,050 horsepower, dividing the connected load into 2. So we minimized the connected load by around 950 horsepower. We were able to achieve 35% electrical energy savings, which is very close to the percentage that we have here for this facility. And we were able to save around $250,000 per year. The facility were able to pay back for the blowers within 2.5 years. They were able to reduce the noise from 120 dBA to 80 dBA and eliminate the use of oil and lubrication. This is another similar project where we replaced 2 multi-stage centrifugal, which is the same technology that we have here. We were able to achieve $56,400 in electrical energy savings, and we got them $75,200 as a grant, which is the same thing you're getting from PG&E. They were able to pay back for the whole project within 4.8 years. This is our average maintenance cost. What we did is we called all our the facilities where our blowers are installed, and we got numbers from them on how much they have paid exactly for maintaining these blowers. The average number is $505 per year. As I mentioned, it's a very low maintenance blower. All that is required is a filter change. You don't need any oil or any lubrication. So average of $505, it doesn't mean that the blower is going to cost this much. Some of them are going to be less, some of them are going to be a bit more, but that's the average for all our 1,300 installations in North America. We also did the same study on the number of installations that we have here, and we found out that we were able to save a total of 130,000 megawatt. That was in December 2018 with the blowers installed. So when we replaced conventional technologies, the old technologies like the one we have here, on a total we were able to save 130,000 megawatt. So both these curves that we saw in the previous slides, they show us a total cumulative saving of $132 million with a total cumulative maintenance of $6 million.
But that's for all
1,300 installed blowers. So this is combined for all the installed blowers right now. But you can see the ratio of the maintenance. It's really small. It's really impressive compared to the other technologies where it may cost up to $5,000 a year to maintain one blower. We have the most number of installation in any state here in California. We have more than 165 blowers in more than 65 different facilities. A lot of them are located very close to this facility. I think the team already visited South San Francisco and City of Millbrae, where we have, in South San Francisco, we have blowers operating for more than 7 years. In City of Millbrae, we have also blowers operating for more than 7 years. And I believe the feedback was really perfect. I mean, they're really happy with these blowers. South San Francisco, they bought blowers back in 2012, and they bought another blower in 2016, and now they're planning on adding one additional blower as well. So this is the installation list that we have here in California. City of Manteca, which is the second last installation here. They just bought 3 units of the same exact size and model that we're proposing for this facility. They were installed, they had our blowers for like 3 or 4 years, and they bought another 3 blowers which are the same exact size of this facility, and they were installed last month. They're going to be commissioned next month. So these are the blowers installed in San Francisco, South San Francisco. We have a 300 horsepower operating since February 2013. And then the other blower is operating since 2016. This is the one in Millbrae, California. 3 blowers in operation since December 2012. And that's it. Any questions?
What do we estimate our payback time? Seems like a very good thing to be doing.
It is a good one. Well, basically the savings that were calculated by PG&E were around $28,000. Now, when so let's say it's a $30,000 cost savings, but when PG&E is doing the calculation, they actually do it only on the power consumption. They don't do it on the operation. The operation part saves a lot of money because with this technology, you're gonna have the option, the flexibility of turning down the speed or up to produce the exact amount of air. So what we did our own study, including the operation data, and we found out that the savings is gonna be somewhere between 30,000, which PG&E found, and 45,000. So if we take the same 30,000 that they have calculated, the payback period for the blowers, for 2 blowers, is going to be somewhere between 8 and 10 years. If you put into, like if you want to calculate also the operation, this payback period will be between 5 and 6 years.
And you said the life expectancy is about 25 years.
At least, yeah, minimum 25 years.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the difference between the 8 and 10 years and the 5 and 6 years.
Right. When you use this technology, it's more efficient because it uses better components with higher quality. It's a new technology that is more efficient. So you achieve the $30,000 less yearly. Now, in addition to that, this technology has operational flexibility. So instead of turning on the machine and running it at full speed the whole time, you can actually see how much flow you need and then reduce the speed to meet this flow that is required.
So based on how you think we will use this equipment, you think it's 5 or 6 years for the payback?
It's based on the data that I got from your existing blowers. So we got
That sounds
some,
great.
we got some data from your existing blowers. We studied this data and we applied the same thing on these blowers. So we found that it's 5 to 6 years. And then after that, it's just savings on the electricity bill.
Right. So your best estimate is 5 or 6 years
Right.
for,
Yeah, that actually matches with the presentation that PG&E did last time.
right.
Their slide clearly says it's 5.12 years simple payback, but they also had a spreadsheet which said 8.6 years depending upon the conditions.
And what is the warranty on it?
The standard warranty is 1 year. Usually with these technologies, if there's any manufacturing defect or an issue that is coming from the factory, you will see it in the first few months. So we give a standard warranty of 1 year, and this can be extended.
It looks like with all of the installations in California, maintenance is available.
It is. We have actually 2 regional field service managers located in California, San Francisco and Los Angeles. In addition to that, we have 3 factory qualified technicians also located in California. I'm not sure about the exact location for these 3, but they are located. But our company policy all around North America, even including Canada, is 24 hours for field service technician to be on site.
That's good to
The
know.
same policy applies for spare parts, which is 24 hours for shipping.
And
So-
because they're interior, mounted interior, the salt air is not going to be a problem? That's a question.
Sorry again?
The salt air here, which is exceptionally corrosive, I didn't see any installations as close to the coast as we are.
We have a full installation list of the coastal facilities. It's pretty impressive. It's more than 120 blowers installed in this area. Honestly speaking, when we first started in 2006, we did not have a lot of protection for the coastal installations. But during 2008 and 10, we introduced a lot of protection I would just mention some of these. There's a coating, it's called the 3C3 coating, where all our, let's say the VFD, all the electrical components are coated with this 3C3. This can only be done while manufacturing the component,
Right.
it cannot be done later on, and it's a standard, it's by default in our blower.
Okay.
So yeah, the salty, even the humidity, the high humidity is not an issue. Just an example, we have an installation in Abu Dhabi, in the Middle East, where very, very high temperature, 100%, they consider 100% humidity for the design, and it's working well since 2013.
Oh, good.
So
Okay.
we have already taken this into consideration.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you for coming out here.
Oh, thank you very much for having me.
Okay, that takes us to item 4C, review and
But
approve.
actually, we need to have a motion, hopefully a motion.
Oh,
on
motion.
that.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Have we made it?
I did make the motion.
And who seconded it? It sounded like it was a
I
tie.
beat him.
Okay,
Just by half a second.
okay.
You can do the
I'll
next.
get her back.
So the motion and the second, and then the vote.
The vote. Aye.
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 And is that's for 4B.
Correct.
Yes, that's
Have we made a motion on 4A? I forget.
Yes, we
We
did.
did, we
Okay.
approved it.
Okay, we can move on to 4C then. Review and approve the design documents for the wet weather storage facility expansion project phase 1 and authorize the BID documents and BID procedure.
So, we've been waiting until we had gotten through the permitting process that needed to happen at the county level. We've gotten through that, and so now we are ready to go out and, with the bid documents, to actually get bids on this project. Please keep in mind that we do have, some deadlines and, some key milestones that we have committed to with the regional board as part of the settlement for the spills. And so in order to meet those, we definitely need to move on this at this meeting.
Okay.
Do we have a presentation of it?
We don't have a
We don't have it.
presentation,
Oh,
but
okay.
yeah.
Any discussion about it that you wanna make?
We've been talking about the project for quite some
Quite
time.
some time,
Yeah.
Right.
And a lot of the packet is about this project. And just for the public that may be watching that isn't familiar, this is expanding the wet weather storage facility that's already in place. And
In Alberta.
in El Granada, in what is commonly referred to as the burning strip. And the reason why we asked to have this project expanded is it allows us at the treatment plant to be able to hold longer, to be able to do projects at the pump stations, here at the treatment plant, and gives us more of a functionality as well as processing time, so if we needed to, we could hold if something was happening at the plant. So that's really why we're looking to expand it from its current size. The regional board agreed that that was a good use of the funds, and so we were able to divert 50% of the penalty, which is approximately $300,000, to this project. Without this project, we would have just written that $300,000 to the regional board as part of the settlement. So this was really beneficial that we could address some of our process concerns as well as utilize some of the funds from that settlement locally rather than writing it to the state.
And these specifications came to the board in August. That was before the coastal development permit process had finished up, and we were still talking with Granada Community Services District about the easement. That's not concluded, but we've got, I think, pretty close, we're really close there. But, and so one of the things that was done this go-around was we put in the conditions of approval into the specification, so it'll be an obligation of the contractor to do all the things that are in there. So I just wanted to mention that.
Yes.
Okay,
When you look at the mitigate negative declaration, there's a lot of mitigation measures that they're gonna be required to do, which I think are good.
Yeah,
Yes, it's a pretty, you know,
it's exhaustive.
it's a decent,
I'll make the
M&D.
motion to approve.
yeah.
Do I have a second?
Second, oh, your turn.
That was my turn.
Sorry, Rick.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we move on to item 4D, adopt a resolution updating the sanitary sewer maintenance plan as required by the general waste discharge requirements.
So every 5 years, we're required to update what we refer to as the SSMP. Each of the agencies has to have one. Ours was approved back in June of 2014, so obviously we're coming up on the 5 years. We worked with an outside consultant to update what needed to be updated to meet the current conditions, and so what you have in front of you are the changes that need to be approved so that we can say we are in compliance. And as well, we audit this every year, and so part of this process was also making sure that we were in compliance with the 2014.
Can I have a motion?
I move that we approve resolution number 2019-04, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Sewer Authority Midcoastside, updating the sewer system management plan.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And this, just as a reminder for those who haven't, I know Granada's just recently approved theirs, but I think Montera and Half Moon Bay we were all sort of around the same time, so if you haven't already, I'm sure you're looking at updating yours, so that, because I think we all did them at about the same time, so.
Good.
And I'd just like to comment that, you know, when you read through this, it's a plan that thinks through a lot of the things that could happen and really has some advanced planning of how to deal with any kind of problems that may arise in order to protect the environment, so I think it's a really good thing.
And one of the things that came out of the spills that we had in 2017 was the ability to take a look and identify some of the areas where we could be even more expansive in how we were going to address things, and we included those in this time around.
Excellent. Good, that moves us to item 4E, authorize general manager to execute a contract with City Mechanical to replace the rooftop HVAC unit in an amount not to exceed $20,822.
This was presented at the last meeting. There was a question, I believe Director Slater Carter had asked regarding a coating that was an optional item with regards to exposure to that mean and nasty salt air. And so we have brought it back, and the coating component of it has now been added in, and that's the difference in the dollar amount you see here is we've added that in.
Thank you very much for doing that.
Yes, that was a good call.
I'll make the motion to authorize the general manager to execute a contract with City Mechanical to authorize a replacement rooftop HVAC unit in an amount not to exceed $20,822.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Wow, there's a race to get
Yeah.
that second, I swear.
Okay, that takes us to item 4F, discuss recruitment for general manager position.
So I wanted to have this on the agenda because in the past, there's been, whenever this opportunity has arisen, there's been an ad hoc committee, but that was because we didn't have a standing committee for the board like we do now with board operations. So it seemed that this was a great opportunity to have that discussion if it was the board's pleasure to utilize what seemed the most relevant opportunities, the board operations committee, rather than having an ad hoc committee, since this committee also deals with the general manager job description, the general manager evaluation, and the general relationship between the board and the general manager. So obviously making the presumption that the board would want to get this process going sooner rather than later, I wanted to make sure there was an opportunity for that discussion so that if staff needed to start working with with the committee or an ad hoc committee, whichever was the board's pleasure, we could start that as soon as possible. And I've also attached I couldn't find a copy of the 2014 recruitment, but I assume it was very much the same as the 2015 recruitment, since they were so, and it was done by the same firm and so close together, I assume they just dusted it up, put a new date on it. But there were some differences between 2010 and 2015, so I did attach both of those flyers from the recruiter. And then the other question is, did you want to use the same recruiter? Did you want to get a different recruiter? Did you want us to do an RFP? What was the discussion?
Well, in discussion with the GCSD general manager, he is recommending that we use a contract manager for the first year and not go out for a full recruiting for a new general manager, so that we would have an opportunity to sort of bring someone in with experience in the field to manage things for a bit before we go out for. So it makes sense to me, but again, I'm relatively new to this, so I'm not, jumping in and saying that's what we have to do. But what I'm saying is, it seems as if there are some different options of the way that we could move forward with this. I agree that it's something we need to move on quickly, but I'm not sure, that the notion of hiring an executive search plan to hire a permanent new person is necessarily the best way to go. And I'd like to be involved somehow in some discussions of that with some of the others here who have more experience than me, because that does seem like a logical potential next step.
I would tend to agree with that. I think with everything that's going on right now in the community, I think I would rather see a lot of those things settled. I think it would be harder for us to leap out and try to grab another general manager at this point, because everybody in the universe knows what's happening here. And I think that would make recruiting more difficult, and I would prefer to see some kind of temporary or contract thing until everything else gets settled, and then when we're more back to normal or stable, then go out for a real recruitment. I just think, I don't wanna say we'd be throwing money away right now, but there's a potential that nobody would
Right.
apply, and we would just be throwing money away. I'd rather make it more productive later at some point.
And are you thinking in terms of a one-year contract?
I would be open on that. I wouldn't argue against a one-year contract. I
Okay.
think that's
That's what we
a
were talking
reasonable
about.
time frame to wrap up everything
Do that
that's
for a
going on.
year, get the
Jim?
lawsuit settled.
No, we can't have dudek.
I didn't say that.
Oh, I thought you said dudek
No,
for a
no.
year.
I never said that.
Don't want any conflict of interest.
No,
I'd have to think about it. There's a strong difference in the orientation towards maintenance and repair from contract managers versus people who have worked in the public sector in a different, the more normal manner. And, so I'm not sure. I think there's a lot we need to talk about. There are people who are recently retired general managers too, who would like a job in addition to their retirement kind of thing, and I think we should be looking into that as well. There are people, I believe, who even have experience with this particular facility who may be available, and so I'd be more than happy to do some asking around.
I think that's what I'm saying, is not necessarily going out and recruiting for a permanent position right away. Not leaping into that, see if we can find,
Yeah, I think
give us a chance to kind of settle down, get the lawsuit settled, get some other things figured out, and then maybe go for a permanent person.
And whoever we do choose is going to have some experience with
Absolutely.
public agencies. Maybe not necessarily sewer agencies, but you know, city managers,
Excuse me.
special district managers, that kind of thing.
I
So
agree
how-
with that.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
How would we go about that process? Is that something we would do, or, you know, would we delegate it to this committee?
I'm not in favor of using a committee, actually. I think this, a couple of you have made the points about how important this,
Yeah.
this process is, given the context. I think it should be a deliberation by the entire board.
I agree.
So I'd like to, proceed in that manner. And I think I'm all in favor of considering an interim contractor. I think we need an acting first potentially, because we're talking about a date in June.
Yes.
Yeah.
So perhaps someone in staff acting as as a acting, and then, look at, management partners or some other, executive, consultancy that has, the retired folks who are available to do this work for a shorter period of time. Because I think also we have some unfinished business, like I think we're still waiting for a report on our internal processes. We hired a consultant to look at, issues that turned up during the audit and to review our internal procedures, which I'd still like to see, and I think that'll be important for any new person that comes on. So, I'm definitely in favor of the acting followed by, an interim while we sort of pull together, our vision for what this, we want this person to do, and look at alternative ways of delivering that service. There may be, other ways that we haven't thought of yet, so. I'm not in favor of, I don't support the staff recommendation of sending out an RFP or assigning it to the operations committee. I think it should be, a public meeting, all board members weighing in, and,
So what would our next step be?
well, I think our next step would be to, hire an acting, identify someone to serve as an acting, because we have about a month,
And at the same time, is there any reason why we couldn't hire a firm like Management Partners, someone like that, to start looking at recruiting a contract manager? Is there any reason to hold up on that? I don't know if there,
Well, I think we probably want a parallel process. We want somebody sort of getting up to speed internally.
right,
It might only be a couple weeks that they have to do this, but I think we want somebody with the knowledge base and the familiarity of, what we've been doing and all that. Getting them ready to step in, and it might be for a shorter period of time, it might be for a longer period of time. We still want somebody from Management Partners or another entity who, fits the bill, that we can live with for a year, who understands where we are. And that's gonna require some interviewing. So I think, we can proceed simultaneously. But-
So are you saying the whole board is going to be interviewing people?
Yeah, I think it should be the entire board actively engaged on this issue.
I would agree with that. That's the way we hired our city manager, and it was very useful to have all 5 council members putting in their point of view. We differed on some things, but we came to consensus, and very happy with the results. And I think that assigning it to a committee leaves out the voices that may differ on significant issues. So I think the entire board can do it. There are only,
Yeah, if we're gonna have differences
6
of
of us.
opinion, we might as well air them, together and get over it.
and it shortens the process too, if you do it that way.
I agree with that. I think the, board interviewing everybody is a fine idea, and I think the acting manager is a good idea. How would the board or would the committee launch that third process, which is how do we get management services going? Does that need to be the whole board? Can we just say go tonight, or?
Why not?
I mean, I'd just say,
Yeah,
start it, because that's the thing that's gonna take.
seems to
months.
me that's,
I mean, that could take months,
Right.
obviously, so.
I don't
Good
see it as an
first step.
RFP either, I see it as more of an informal process. We just reach out to a couple of those organizations that have, retired managers or, working part-time. Tell them what we need, so
What
we
if
probably
we
want.
We ask Beverly to reach out, or while she's still here, or, you know, like, what is the next step? That's,
Well, I think,
or do,
with Beverly leaving,
yes.
I think we want, you know, part of the load is also gonna fall more, at least temporarily, on the managers of the agencies.
Mhm.
So we might want a process that engages them.
No.
No. Sorry.
I put a lot of thought into that, and I think with the lawsuit and everything else and what's been going on, I think that's a no, we can't do that. They have a different interest. They have been working against Beverly. And I believe they have not been working for the best, in the best interests of Sam.
Well, I think it's something certainly that Beverly could do, you know, she could reach out. And I would have her probably work with whatever acting we have, internal staff, and bring some options to us.
And it seems we might need to have a special meeting or two
I'm
to
open to
move on
that.
this. I'm willing to
Yeah.
do that, and it seems as if we do need to figure this out.
I don't have any objection to our saying to Beverly tonight, can you please get in touch with management partners? And ask
some other
them.
similar places.
Well, and other similar
I know
places.
3 or 4 that do this on
Yeah.
a regular basis. Between Stacy and I, we probably have contacts at 3 or 4 that we could reach out to.
Well, I'd like to just
I-
point out some people I know locally who might be able to help carry the load, you know, for a short period of time. It might be Dave Dixon at CCWD.
No,
Well, we're not deciding
just
yet.
saying,
But there's also, former, Half Moon Bay City Council member Larry Patterson, who's retired as a public works director from San Mateo and also was a city manager at San Mateo. And he lives in Montera.
I know. her.
Also, the retired GM from Silicon Valley, Dan Child, who is familiar with JPA, because obviously Silicon Valley Clean Water is a JPA, like 10 times or more our size, is retired and lives nearby as well. So,
He lives here on the coast?
Mhm.
I love the idea of somebody local.
Yeah, I think
and
reach out
he's-
to that guy and Larry Patterson. I would reach out to those two to be part of that mix.
Yeah, and I know one of them, like, formed his own LLC or whatever, so he can do this kind of work. So obviously, because there's some cautiousness you have to go through when you're dealing with retirees from CalPERS because of the requirement for the limited amount of hours. But if they go through a firm, as long as that's the case, then that resolves that.
City attorney, I mean.
I think if we're-
There's a couple of things I just want to mention with regard to, the one thing has to do with the CalPERS is an issue if the person is in the CalPERS system. There's limits on exactly how that will work and
Right.
how that affects whether they're retired annuitants, whether that means they have to suspend their retirement. The other thing I wanted to mention is this, California Supreme Court issued a decision in the Dynamex case. And that makes it much more difficult for someone to contract as an independent contractor with a firm that only has one client. So that is a potential thing to watch out for. I mean, essentially what that means is if they're not an independent contractor, then they're an employee. If they're an employee, they're entitled to benefits. So that's what that issue, that ramifications of that are. So if you have a firm that's got multiple clients, it's not a problem.
Yes.
If you have a firm that has one client, then you've got that
Is
problem.
that considered
potentially.
kind of like a sole source thing?
Yeah.
It's sort of like that. I mean, it has to do with, it has to do with the difference between what an independent contractor is, and has a lot to do with control. And the thought is, if you only have one client, then, and the board is telling you what to do, it sounds very much like an employment situation.
So
That's the distinction that has to be
something that
drawn
I
in that sort of
think
context.
we need to consider if we're asking staff to take on extra workload, we need to hire temps to be able to take up some of the important things that staff does. We're short-staffed here, we've been short-staffed for a long time. The workload on our staff is huge. And so I think we need to find ways to adjust so that if somebody's doing extra work, they can have some backup.
Well, I would invite our general manager to provide a little analysis about what she thinks is needed, you know, short-term, midterm. We can consider that, I have no problem with that. I will say though that I'm not gonna hesitate to ask my city staff to weigh in. I trust their judgment on things. They
That's
work for the
nice.
city, I
That's
represent the
nice,
city,
but you're
so-
suing Sam. I think you can't do that.
I don't believe we're suing Sam.
I believe Sam isn't also named, and you're
No,
also
that's
suing the
not.
member
I
agencies.
don't believe we are suing Sam.
No, you are suing
So
Sam.
statements like that
But this is not
are-
on the agenda, the lawsuit, this is
Nothing
the
No,
except
the
inflammatory.
solution to the manager's problem is on the lawsuit.
Point
It's
of-
on
point
the
of order,
agenda in
Madam
closed
Chair.
session.
And
I think we can
discuss
have,
it
yeah.
then.
I
Point
think
of order,
Bringing Half Moon Bay staff
Point of
in
order.
is against the interest.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Also, just to point out, some of this discussion, there are 2 items in closed session so that there can be a very free exchange of ideas and issues for both acting and interim, which cover both of the things that were just discussed. And acting would be
Yes.
somebody internally who's acting as GM, and the interim is more of the contract situation where it might be 6 months or a year. So both of those items are in closed session so
Yes.
that there can be a very broad discussion.
Well, at
on-
this
on those
point,
issues.
in terms of this item on the agenda, do you understand the general direction
Yes,
of the board?
I do.
Not a
Yeah.
problem. I think we are willing to have a special meeting if we need to move this along.
Of course we
Because
are.
we understand the time constraints in getting this going.
Perfect.
We need to
Sure.
discuss the acting manager.
That's,
in closed session.
there's a closed session.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. That moves us to the general manager's report.
I just wanted to mention, I had sent out a poll to set up an ad hoc, another ad hoc legal search, and I only got 1 reply to that. All of those dates have passed, so I'll send it out again, so that we can have that discussion, cause obviously we need to continue moving forward, so I just wanted to,
I will say this,
I
May
did
is very,
respond.
May is a very difficult month.
yes, the problem is that the, extension on, the Bold, contract was June 30. So we either need to have a discussion so that we can get very specific direction, or, we need to, extend that again.
Well, this
And-
week and this weekend are not working for me.
Yeah,
so-
ad hoc, I'm pretty sure, isn't that, Director Blanchard, Director Slater Carter, and Director Ruddick?
Yeah.
So those were the 3. So, I will send out another poll, with some more dates, so we can continue to move that forward. And then that way, whatever the direction is, if something has to come back, it can come back to the June 10th meeting.
Okay.
And that was the only thing I had for management at
Okay,
this time.
attorney's report.
Well, I could report on some legislation I was talking about, but I think I'll pass, and we can talk in closed session. I'll have plenty of, certain things to report in closed session anyway.
Great. Topics for future board consideration.
You've got the attachment if there's anything that you want to add, other than the things we've already discussed tonight.
Yeah, the only thing I would like to add is to have a discussion on how we use our attorney. And whether our attorney needs to be present at all board meetings. We've talked about this before, we haven't really gotten anywhere with it, but I think it's timely.
Yeah, and we have been having discussions
you've
about
been
how we
having-
can try and make that work. The problem is this room isn't very functional for a 2-way exchange that can also be captured with the videography. So we're trying to figure out how we can make that happen. There really aren't a lot of examples of that we've been able to identify where we could say, oh, this is how district so-and-so or city so-and-so has managed it.
Do you have to have a video? Can't you just do it with audio?
Well, we had that discussion and when we talked about it at the ad hoc committee, and there was a desire to have the attorney be able to see the faces of the board and because there's something about body language and seeing the body language of the attorney as well as hearing the tone in the voice, because sometimes you can pick up quite a bit
And I was just gonna give an example, when we had the auditor call in, it was very awkward because he was not able to get a sense of where the directors were, and I think that made the discussion much more complicated than
And
it
people
needed to be.
couldn't hear as well either.
People couldn't, yeah.
And
So
he
there's-
couldn't identify who was talking. I mean, he could tell male, female, but whether it was one board member or another, later on when I talked to him, he goes, now which director was it that said that? So for him in that moment, it became more difficult, and I think that would be something that any legal firm, and especially if we're looking at going forward with another firm and they're trying to learn the board, you know, not being able to watch the exchange that's going on as well, and people, even under the most polite circumstances, can talk over each other, and then something could get missed. And so there's all of these things that we've been trying to figure out how, and without some sort of live feed or something that, like at the city council meeting, if your attorney wasn't there, the attorney could be watching. But without a live feed, it's very difficult, so that the videographer can also pick up on the exchange. Because if we put something back here so you can see, but then the videographer can't, if we put it back there, then videographer gets it, but then nobody can see the board. So we're trying to figure out exactly how that might work. So it's not that we've ignored it, it's just we haven't figured out a solution to it yet from a technical perspective, but I'm happy to put that on there for further discussion.
Yeah, I would like to see it on,
Mm-hmm.
If I could also do a quick director's report,
sure.
we jumped
I
over that, we're
I
kind
don't-
of quick to there.
Oh, we did skip right past item 7, I apologize.
I attended the Aqua conference,
Oh, there you go.
so my mind's spinning here, down in Monterey. And although that's a water convention and we're sewer agencies, there were like 3 or 4 things that were very, very relevant to everybody here on the coast. The first one is everybody should understand that we're very blessed on the coast here to have good water. Almost all the convention was about all of the problems in the Central Valley, which are huge, and it's just stunning how bad some of the situations are and how lucky we are out here to have water. Governor Newsom has stuck out a law or something. It's a great idea that every Californian needs to have drinkable water. The effect of that will be a lot of money being spent, especially on smaller districts, again, in the Central Valley. But the direct effect on us is one of the leading proposals you may have seen is a water tax. This would be a tax on every water user in California. They are trying to work out this trust fund because nobody likes the idea of a water tax, but that's moving forward. The other thing which is sort of directly related to us is they pretty much determined that all of the weather patterns here on the coast are driven by what people have now called the atmospheric rivers. And that's what our weather is, so they're trying to push more research. Weather's like the worst thing you want to predict. It's all chaotic math and all that. But the more they can predict, what they're trying to do is predict when the rains are coming more accurately, literally how much rain is gonna be dropped in each of these storms and how long it's gonna last. What they're doing is working with the Army Corps of Engineers who run all the big reservoirs and dams. The Army Corps has usually defined laws. When the water gets to here on the dam, we let water out. And they have been pretty rigid about that. But what they've done by negotiating with the weather services and the Army Corps is to show that, yeah, the water's gonna hit there, but if you look ahead 2 weeks, nothing's coming. So they've sort of negotiated an extra like 15%, which means the water we just don't throw away and go into the ocean. So they're trying to work with the Army Corps, and again, their whole future, where they're pouring all the money, is to give us better atmospheric river forecasts and work on that, so.
Interesting,
That's it.
yeah.
We're scraping the
you.
bottom.
So they're asking, essentially, they're asking the people who have taken care of their water, like Half Moon Bay and Montera, to pay a tax for communities that have not been.
Yeah, the biggest problems that they've come up with for the mid thing is not the big agencies. The big agencies do a pretty decent job, but they listed hundreds and hundreds of what they call mom and pop agencies. It could be 2 connections, it could be 10 connections, 100 connections. And none of them have the power or the money or the base to put in $100,000 systems and divide it by 10 people. So they can't improve.
But these were approved by a city or a
Yep,
county
they all
who
got
has
in.
taken the property tax revenues and all of the good things that come with new development,
Yeah.
and now they want to put it on others.
Yeah. So although mergers aren't really a big popular thing, what they're looking at is to merge and work some of these are like 5 miles away from a perfectly functional water districts, and they're looking at seeing what's the critical mass they need to merge enough of these together that they can then become a real agency. They don't wanna just make it charity cases, they wanna turn them into operational units, which can then have enough money and base to buy stuff and filtration and more pipes and all that kind of stuff, so.
Well, part and parcel of that, they're gonna have to change their agricultural practices, right? They're gonna have to stop draining the aquifers, and they're gonna start, having to start, manage their soil better and choosing their plants more wisely for sustainability. So it's not just
Yep.
forming new water agencies and taking more out of the ground, it's like managing the whole picture for the long term.
That's right.
And that's gonna be tough.
Okay.
Okay. Any other topics for future board consideration? Any public comment? Okay, then we will close the open session and convene in closed session.
We'll take a quick